Okay, this is additional practice 1-1. Okay, so for 1 and 2, we're going to find the domain, range, x and y intercepts, the positive and negative intervals, and the intervals, the increasing and decreasing intervals. So the first thing we should do, okay, I think is important for this is to highlight your x-intercepts and any local minimums or local maximums that you have. So here are my two x-intercepts. That's going to be at -5, 0. And then at 5, 0. And then we have a local minimum, right? It's going from decreasing to increasing at 0, okay, -25. All right, so the first thing is domain. So domain are all the possible x values. Right, so domain are all the possible x values. So we're this graph's going all, basically we're looking for how far left we can go and how far right we can go. So we can go all the way to the left. So we can go all the way to -infinity on the left. And we can go all the way to positive infinity on the right. So our interval here is going to be -infinity all the way to positive infinity. Okay, range are the possible y values. So basically how far up and how far down you can go. What are the possible values, y values you can have? So the lowest we can go on this graph is going to be -25. And the highest on both ends, it's going to go up towards infinity. So we're going to go from -25 up to infinity. And we need to put a bracket on that -25 because we include it because you can get to -25, right? So we put a bracket. Right, your x-intercepts we already have, right? -5, 0 and 5, 0. Okay, those are the points where the function crosses the x-axis. And then your y-intercepts are where the function crosses the y-axis. So our y-intercept is going to be 0, -25. Okay, and it just crosses once, so just one y-intercept. Right. Positive intervals are when the graph or the function is above the x-axis. So here's our x-axis. Above, we're going to have 2 intervals. So the first interval, right, we're only reading the x values. So our first interval goes all the way to the left, so -infinity. All the way to -5. Okay, and then the function's positive again, starting at 5 and going all the way to the right, so all the way to infinity. Right, it's negative when it's below the x-axis. So the graph is below the x-axis from -5 all the way to +5 here in blue. Okay, so the red is your positive intervals, the blue is your negative. So when we write that, we're going to write it as -5 to 5. Okay. Increasing and decreasing. So let's just start from the left and go right. So if we start on the left at -infinity, we're decreasing, right? We're starting by going down. So we're decreasing from -infinity all the way until we hit 0. Okay, so I'm going to put that in my interval for decreasing, -infinity all the way to 0. Okay, then once we hit 0, we begin increasing. So we're increasing then from 0 all the way to the right, as far as you can go all the way to infinity. So we're increasing from 0 all the way to positive infinity. Okay, and then we're not doing average rate of change, so that one's crossed off. All right, number 2. Okay, same thing. Before I even do anything, I'm going to write kind of my key points, any x-intercepts and any relative mins or relative maxes, the local mins, local maxes. So I don't have any x-intercepts. It doesn't cross the x-axis, but I do have a local minimum here at -2, 3. Okay. So my domain is how far left and right we can go. So this, again, the arrow is going up to the left, so it can go all the way left and all the way up. And this arrow is going up to the right, so it goes all the way right and all the way up. So domain is how far left and right you're going. So we're going from negative infinity all the way to positive infinity, from all the way to the left to all the way to the right. The range is the possible y values. The lowest we can go is negative, or is positive 3. And we're going to use a bracket there because we can actually reach it. If we couldn't actually get to 3, then we'd put a parentheses. And then both sides of the graph go up to infinity. So it's 3 to infinity. All right, we said no x-intercepts. It doesn't cross the x-axis everywhere, so there are no x-intercepts. So I'm going to put none. Y-intercepts, where it crosses the y-axis, it looks like 0, 7. All right. When is the function positive? So that's when the function is above the x-axis. So this entire function, the entire graph is above the x-axis. So that entire thing is going to be positive. So it's positive from negative infinity all the way to infinity. All right, since none of the graph is below the x-axis, our negative interval doesn't exist. We don't have a negative interval. So I'm going to write none because there is no negative interval here. Okay. Going left to right, right? We read it from left to right. So if we're going left to right, starting at negative infinity, we're decreasing. We're going down. So from negative infinity up until you reach negative 2. We are decreasing. And then once we hit 2, negative 2, okay, we go from decreasing to increasing. The graph is going up now. So that's going to be increasing. So from 2 until infinity, negative 2 to infinity, we should have, I'm sorry, I wrote them in reverse. Oops. Right, the decreasing one, negative infinity to negative 2. And then once you reach negative 2, it starts going up towards infinity. Okay. And then we're not doing average rate of change. All right, and then the last one here, number 3. Okay, we want to sketch a line, right? So the domain and range are both negative infinity to negative infinity. It's increasing, so we have all this information. The first thing I'm going to do is look at my x-intercept. So I have one x-intercept at negative 2.5, so I'm going to put a point there. Okay, and I have a y-intercept at 10. 2, 3. So that's way off the map. Okay. Let's look at some of these other things. Increasing, so it's going to be going up the whole time. Okay. And then again, this is where it crosses. So the only other information here we have is the y-intercept, but that gives us 2 points. Okay, so our 2 points we know are going to be negative 2.5, comma 0, and 0, comma 10. So we can use that to find the slope of our line, and then we can plot our line in here because, it doesn't fit. All right, so slope is m2, I'm sorry, change in y over change in x. So we're going to do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, so our y value is going to be 10 minus 0 over 0 minus a negative 2.5, right, which is going to give me 10 over 2.5, which is going to give me 4. Right, so my slope is going to be 4, so I'm going to come here, I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3. Oh, so the graph's going by 2s though, so we didn't even need to do that. We could have just drawn in our point 0, 10, and then there's our line. Okay. So the y is going up by, you can see the the y-axis is going up by 2s. So this point right here is the 0.010. So we didn't even need to do this part, but you go up 4 over 1, right? Up 4 over 1, right? Or you can go down 4 over 1 to get points on your line. So domain's good, range is good. It's increasing the whole time. It's positive starting at negative 2.5 to infinity, negative from negative infinity to 2.5.